Let's get this party started.
It means at least a Final Four like the last guy.
I think our guest want to chime in on that question.
Outstanding.
Herb Sendek was successful. He went to the NCAA tournament every year, but it wasn't good enough.
It ain't ever good enough.
It
ain't never good enough.
Yeah.
That voice you hear
That's
is
right.
the governor of the great state of North Carolina, the one and only Governor Josh Stein. Welcome to the show, Governor. How you doing?
Kmac, what's happening?
Outstanding,
How you doing?
man. Man, we get to call him governor now.
I know. We got to change it up, man. We got to change it up. We got to change it up.
Well, it used to be general, but
I know.
Exactly.
Now we're moving on up,
we just keep going on up. Thank you so much for continuing the tradition to come on with us here at the Sports Shop, talk a little NCAA basketball. It's always fun. I was just teasing. I said, well, I wonder if I still get my picture with the governor at the Final Four. Well, now it's the governor, but at the Final Four, because I run into you at the Final Four all the time. We take a selfie.
How about we do the women's Final Four?
Okay, all right, that'll work.
I'm now an adherent to the NCAA women's tournament because we still got State, Carolina, and Duke.
There you go.
The men's tournament, is it even happening anymore? I don't even know.
It is actually happening. We had some great games this past weekend right here in Raleigh in the men's tournament. Duke over at the Lenovo. Yeah, Florida over at the Lenovo. Did you get a chance to go check out some of that? You didn't get a chance?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right.
I think the tournament a little bit boring. There was a good game. Obviously the Florida UConn game was great. Maryland hit a buzzer beater, but of course we hate Maryland because they broke up the ACC.
They sure did.
They started this devolution that is we're still feeling the pain from. But I mean, most of the games just went to form. Not a lot of excitement. Obviously, being a Carolina fan, I'm bummed. But you know what? Carolina's not out of it. You got Caleb Love with Arizona and Kerwin Pittman with Texas Tech. They're still going.
The thing is, when I see Caleb Love, I have to think about that too. We talked to
and he's playing Duke next.
That's right.
He's the Duke killer.
That's
he is. I was gonna say yes. He's a Duke
Are you reading
killer.
my notes? I said the exact same thing this morning. We talked to the Governor Josh Stein, the great state of North Carolina. I got to ask you this question: in your attorney general or prior to this, the governor of West Virginia.
Yeah, that was.
Come on now.
He mad.
And my colleagues like Kmac and A-Town Out of Glass, they still want to talk about, investigating the Bubba Cunningham because they say it's some funny business. He want to get a bonus. I mean, this worth taxpayers' money.
See, he was announcing an investigation. I already had a lawsuit filed.
No way.
Ready to go if they didn't pick Carolina. That is not. No, I'm not serious. Not serious. But honestly, Carolina, if you look at the end of the season, they won 7 of the last 9. The only 2 games they lost were to the number 1 team in the country.
So
they were on the rise, and then they proved their point in the first game, played great, but then they went back to their old self in the first round.
First half.
Oh my God! Up, then they went back to old Carolina.
And then you knew when they were down 20, they still were going to have a chance to win it at the end. And they had the chance.
Opportunities down the stretch.
You cannot live on the edge like that, and Carolina proved that time and time again.
I'm kind of glad it's over.
But what's interesting is that who's playing tonight at 7 p.m. is UNC women and West Virginia.
And Pam asked a question.
Yes, I'm going to be at that game.
Okay.
I was wondering. I was like, is the governor coming?
I have a commitment that keeps me from going there, but I'll watch it on ESPN. And so this will be the resolution between who is better, West Virginia or North Carolina.
I wonder if the West Virginia governor will be here.
I doubt it. He's actually an okay guy, but my goodness.
But I thought that was interesting, though. Anyway.
Oh, my God. We are talking to our amazing governor, Josh Stein. So with Carolina being out and all the other ACC teams, with the exception of Duke, how's your bracket looking?
Not good. It pretty much, after the first game, my bracket looked bad. And then after the second game, my bracket looked bad. After the first day, it looked bad. It's gone bad ever since. I do have my Final Four teams are all still in.
Same here.
So I've got a chance. And I picked Duke and 3 SEC teams. And Duke, I think Duke has the most talent, but they have 2 Achilles heel. One of those Achilles heel is the ankle of Cooper Flag, because if he tweaks it again, that's really going to hurt him. And then the other is their youth. And when you're young, you never know when you're going to tighten up and make a mistake. And Florida is a bunch of grown men, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
So I know that took a lot for you to pick Duke to go that far. To pick Duke,
Real talk.
To pick Duke to go that far. But let's talk real
I have
quickly.
Duke in the Final Four in the women too. They're good.
Ooh.
They're good.
They all have a bad year basketball.
I didn't see them coming on as late as of the last month. I guess
ACC when they won ACC.
Yeah, they really are starting to come on. The Duke women are so.
Yeah.
So I
And
will be
State's
interested
good.
to see how far they can go. But
Yep.
So let's talk ACC as a whole in general. You know, I always consider the ACC to be a North Carolina league, right?
Yep.
North Carolina league where they are. ACC's been touted as being a little weak this year, not where it normally is. Talk about the importance of the ACC to the state of North Carolina and where you see that.
Well, it is important, and as you know, it was headquartered in Greensboro forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple years ago, they were going to make a switch, and they chose Charlotte, which is a good thing to keep it in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as a sentimentalist who wants to go back to the days when Maryland was still in and all these other teams were not, I wanted to stay in North Carolina. And Charlotte makes a lot of sense because it's got this international airport. It's got all the pro teams. It's a sports town. So I'm just glad they're still in North Carolina. I hope that they're able to figure out this new era.
Mm-hmm.
The SEC now has 7 teams in the Sweet 16. In addition to all their football dominance, they have 7 teams in the Sweet 16, breaking the record held by the ACC, which had 6 teams years ago. And so even in our bread and butter sport, basketball, there's a decline happening. And honestly, I don't know what's going on behind the curtain. I don't know what it is that they figured out. I just have to assume it's money, that they're able to get players in a way that the ACC is not able to get players, because players are looking at it like, I can go to this team and play well, or that team and go play well and get paid a lot more money, so I'll go to that team.
Right. And the ultimate goal is to get to the league.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right. And it's been, everyone wants to change the narrative and how can we help the ACC? So it's kind of a rumor out there that maybe the ACC should merge with the Big East. What would be your thoughts on that in basketball?
Yeah, I hadn't heard it. I don't know. Something needs to be figured out. I don't know the whole college sports and how much money is being spent on it. But there is a connection between sports and the reputation of the school. I mean, the SEC schools academically are now more popular because the football teams are good. And honestly, if you look at Duke's ascendancy over the last 50 years, the competitiveness to get into Duke increased dramatically during the 80s when Coach K was starting out at Duke. Like it changes the reputation around the country. So I understand the importance of it. I'm old school and I don't really like it.
Yeah. I had a chance to catch up with the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, yesterday. I called him big time because they are dominating the whole landscape, football and now basketball, which is really interesting. Let's switch gears just a little bit. Speaking of big time, you the big time guy in this state.
That's right.
Can you tell my wife that?
No, we say in this state, not in your house.
Exactly.
There's always a difference.
That's a bit different. But Governor, you recently announced some budget proposals. Talk about that a little bit, if you will.
Yeah, it's all about making the state the strongest it can possibly be. And the way you do it is by having a great workforce. First thing you do is it starts in K-12, having the best public schools we possibly can. North Carolina is 48th in the country in what we spend on our kids on a per pupil basis. I mean, it's just it's a disgrace. Our starting teacher pay is the second lowest in the entire Southeast. We're behind Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia, even South Carolina. All the states that border us pay their starting teachers more than we do. Yes, it's an embarrassment.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so I have a budget proposal that will get starting teacher pay to the highest in the Southeast over the next 2 years. It will increase pay for all teachers so that we're rewarding our experienced teachers. We want to have excellent public schools. We want to have workforce.
Sure.
No state is going to outwork North Carolina when it comes to developing our workforce. We have to have a great relationship between our high schools, our community colleges, and our private businesses to make sure that young people leaving school get the skills that they need, the credential they need to get into the workforce and start making good money. And those jobs are there, whether it's in healthcare or advanced manufacturing. And what I want to do is if you're getting trained in one of those high need skills, your community college will be free. And that's what my budget will do for you.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Yeah. And we got to make sure people are safe. We got to have more good cops on the beat, keeping people safe in their neighborhoods. We got to make sure that the healthcare system is accessible, affordable for people. there's a lot we need to be doing. And right now, I want to make sure that our budget reflects our values, and that's investing in people and families.
Budget reflects the values. Sounds like a good plan to me.
That's a great plan.
Yes.
You know that.
And you already governor.
He said, now it's time to execute. Execute.
I'm in the executive branch.
There you
Right.
go.
Let's
so
do it.
speaking of executing,
Yes.
what do you see as, once you make the recommendations, what's next? What are the challenges in getting this passed?
So the process is the governor starts with the budget he or she proposes. I propose mine. It now goes to the Senate this year. They will do their budget. They'll look at my budget and write their own. Then it goes to the House, and they'll look at the Senate's, and they'll look at mine, and they'll write their own. And then the negotiations start.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, because you wanted the answer to that question because he wasn't sure what the next process was.
Yeah, it goes to the legislature.
Yeah.
And, there is some of this stuff is partisan. I'm a Democrat.
Yep.
The legislature is controlled, both chambers, by Republicans. In the Senate, it's a supermajority, meaning that if I were to veto a bill, there are enough Republicans there to override that veto. On the House, the Democrats broke the supermajority by one vote, which means that if I veto it and the Democrats stay together, then it will not pass. So it gives me some leverage. And what I want to do is not fight. Let's come together for what's right for the people. We just did that last week. I signed my first bill.
Yeah.
I did my first budget, my first bill. My first bill was $500 million for Western North Carolina recovery after the storm. I mean, it's still incredibly messed up out there. Although I want people in the Triangle to know, go out there and visit, because the vast majority of towns are open for business, and they depend on tourism more than most regions in North Carolina. So they need our dollars. So if you're looking for something to do for a weekend this spring, go to Western North Carolina, spend a couple dollars. They will be grateful. But that $500 million is going to go to housing reconstruction for people. It's going to go to help farms that had all their topsoil washed down the river.
Yes.
It's going to go to help small towns rebuild their downtowns so that it will support small business. There's a lot of good efforts in there. I asked for a lot more money than that because the needs are much greater than just $500 million. But I'm just eager to get started, and I can't have contractors put a hammer to a nail if I don't have the money. But now we have some money, so we're going to get started, and we'll get housing construction going this summer.
Governor Stein, we got people chiming in out on YouTube. But it's like, and this guy, I know he's in Louisiana. He said, it seems like your governor is sharp guy, unlike those other ones. That's what he said. It's right there. Wow.
Yeah. They pretty straight to the point. They don't sugarcoat
Unlike those other ones.
They don't sugarcoat it. Wow, we're talking with Governor Josh Stein right here on the Sports Shop. Governor, it's kind of refreshing, just to hear people talk, common sense, business, how you move people forward and caring about people. Just on an interesting note for me, I would just like to understand, like, you knew a lot about the executive branch before, being the AG before, being around, but now being the governor and having this responsibility, is there anything that you kind of realized, coming into the office once you got sworn in, that you said, this is a little bit different than I thought?
It's a great question, because you're right. I had a pretty good perspective, good visibility into what the office was like, because Governor Cooper was there for 8 years before.
Another friend of the show.
Yeah, and just a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine. I worked with him 25 years ago when he was AG. I was his head of consumer protection. So I've known him and worked well with him for a long time. That helped me have a good sense of what the job is. So I feel like I was able to get started with more understanding than most people would have coming in the job. But when you're in the position, you do see things differently.
Right.
I would say I spent a lot more time on the budget than I thought I would.
Okay.
Just preparing that budget that we introduced last week, it took so many hours, just countless hours, because it is a big state government, and it's a $33 billion budget. So it's hard work. That took up a lot of time. There are a lot of appointments I make to boards and commissions. That ends up taking more time than I thought. So there are aspects of the job that have demands that I wasn't fully expecting, but overall, it is in line with what I thought it would be.
Nice.
So what's next on the agenda? I know we got the budget in place, and of course just passed a bill. What's next?
Well, as Pam said, execute. So we got this $500 million. what I tell my team, I have a call this morning at 9, every daily call, every weekly cabinet meeting. The first thing we talk about is Hurricane Helene relief. What are we doing out there? And what I want to do is make sure that whatever dollars come to North Carolina, we get them back out to the community in the intended ways to help people as quickly and as effectively as we can. Because it doesn't do any good if the money's just sitting in a bank account, not being put to use. And so I want to make sure that whatever resources we get, we're spending them well. One part of my budget is I create something called an impact center, which is to look at how we spend our state dollars to make sure that we are spending it well. Because we don't have enough money to do all the things we need to do. And that means we cannot afford to waste a dollar. And what I told my people was, I said, no chainsaws, just scalpels. just use a scalpel and no chainsaws.
Wow. Balompo.
That's one thing that I wanted to highlight as part of your recommendations, because as some people losing their jobs and different things like that, is the increase in unemployment benefits.
Yeah. Well, North Carolina has some of the cheapest unemployment benefits in the country. And we used to be right in the middle of the pack, so that if you lost your job, then you get a fraction of that salary for a number of weeks, depending on how long it takes you to find a job. And it was really, when it was back about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the Republicans just slashed it so that we have the fewest number of weeks and among the lowest dollars in the country. And it's, to me, it's heartless, because you only get unemployment if you were fired through no fault of your own. It's not like you were bad at your job and got fired. It's because you got laid off because whatever, the business went out of work or whatever. And so you got to help people get back on their feet. People want to take care of themselves. People want to be on their own. They want the dignity of supporting themselves. But you got to help people sometimes. Like the people in Western North Carolina, they're not looking for a handout, but they got knocked down, and we have got to give them a hand up.
Outstanding.
Yes.
Once again, he's already been elected, but he's still out working for the people. He's out working for the people. Governor, last thing for me before we let you get out of here. What's your vision for the next version of North Carolina, the future version of North Carolina?
That we're even stronger than we are, because we have so many things going for us, but what's great is not evenly distributed around the state, and it's not evenly accessible by all people. And my view is if you were willing to roll up your sleeves and you work hard, you should be able to make it. And you should be able to make it here in Raleigh. You should be able to make it in Wilson. You should be able to make it in Henderson. You should be able to make it in Transylvania County.
There it is right there. But who's going to make it to the championship game? That's what I want to know. Who's going to be the champion?
We're talking about making it.
Yeah, who's going to be the champion?
Florida and Duke in a shootout.
Oh, that is. Governor Stein.
And then the women, it's going to be USC, and USC is going to win.
Oh, wow. USC against USC. I like that.
You heard it here, the governor.